Our fourth test for our 10-step self-screen is our neck, shoulder, and thoracic clearing test. Like our clearing test before it, we're looking for one thing, pain. If we have pain, we want to make sure we refer ourselves out to an adequately qualified professional to help us relieve some of the issues. For this clearing test, you will need either a broomstick or a dowel to help measure thoracic rotation, but for the most part, we can just use ourselves. We're going to kick off with a cervical clearing test, which is our neck. We're simply going to go sit nice and tall. We're going to go chin to chest, eyes to roof, side to side, and then tilting left and tilting right. Now, like I said, we're simply looking for pain. You might notice a bit of stiffness or restriction on some sides, but we'll work on that later. The next we have is our AC impingement clearing test. So what we're going to do is place our hand over onto our opposite shoulder. Now that hand can't leave the body while we do this test. So if our palm peels up, we've gone too far. So palm on top of the shoulder, raising the elbow as high as we can. Lowering down and onto the other side. So throughout that movement, we should have no pain. Our final clearing test is our thoracic rotation. We want to use our dowel here. We're going to put that on our shoulders and we're going to rotate as far around to the left and right as we can. The measurement we're aiming for is about 45 degrees either side. But once again, we're simply looking for pain. And there we have it, guys. If you've got pain throughout any of those movements, make sure you refer yourself out to a physio and the like, get yourself sorted, and then we can move on. Have you ever wondered how to release that neck from long days of sitting, or if you carry excess tension in your neck? Here's a couple of little mobility drills that you can use with a trigger point ball that'll make your life a little bit nicer if you carry a lot of neck tension. The first one we have is our simple trigger point ball over the midsection of our neck here, and we're going to grab that ball in our hand, big high elbow, and we're going to place it in the midsection of our neck. Now that muscle beside the spine, that's what we're aiming for, and pushing that ball into that recess there. We're simply adding a bit of tension through the palm of that hand, and we're pulling that ball down along the neck. It should come down on a diagonal aspect, and we're simply pulling across the muscle. Once we've done that there for a few times, we can use some head tilts with that pressure still on that ball through the hand, pushing in with that nice high elbow. The next one is the base of our skull. We're aiming for that muscle on the side of the spine there. And we're going to lay down and we're going to place that ball in the divot that we find right about here at the base of our skull next to that muscle. That should be a soft little trigger point, and the rule with the trigger point is wriggle around until you find that point that works for you. You might feel a little bit of discomfort and you might feel that pain radiate through the top of your head, and that's okay. Back the tension or the amount of force you push into the ball to something comfortable that works for you. So we're going to lay down, and we're going to grab that ball and we're going to place it into that little recess that we've identified at the base of our skull. If we can't find the position, we simply just wriggle around until we get it. We can turn our head, raise it up and down. Once we've got it, we can help by keeping that ball into position with our fingers clasped around the ball like so. And we're simply going to draw some circles with our chin. And then we're going to shake our head and back to those circles. Once we find a little sore spot, we're going to sit there for a little bit and we're going to push our head into that ball. Remembering to breathe throughout the whole process and being nice and relaxed. If we grab that tension, we're not going to release that trigger point. So circles, head shakes, and then pushing into that ball. Once you feel that pain start to drop off and dissipate, that's starting to have its effect. You could be there for 2 to 3 minutes, simply working on that one trigger point. Now, don't forget to do each side, notice the differences and see how you go. Long days of sitting, lots of pull-ups, both have something in common. They both use our lats or stress our lats, and as our lats are internal rotators, that can push us into that rounded shoulder we see, which we want to avoid when we talk about posture. So here's a lat release that will help keep you nice and upright and open, particularly if you've got a lot of pulling based movements in your training. This is something you're going to want to do. So trigger point ball here, laying down on our side. When we get there, we're finding the recess between our delt and our lat here. So you'll find that natural crease in your arm, and we're going to place that ball right in there and put some pressure on it. Once we're here, we simply wriggle around until we find the position. Once you get into position, it might feel a little ropey if you haven't been in here before, a little bit tender. We're simply just going to roll over the ball like so. If we find a sore spot, we're going to sit on it and breathe into it. The trick is here to take our time and let the pain naturally fall away the more we spend in there. Once we get there and we feel it dropping off, we can add those turns back in, and we can simply keep working along that line between the delt and the lat until we feel that we've given a little bit of release through the area there. So there you have it, guys, a simple trigger point ball release for those muscles that we often forget about because it's not our pec or our thoracic, but just as important when we talk about posture. Pec release. So sitting, rounded shoulders, lots of pushing movements. We want to make sure we're releasing our pecs in an efficient manner. So trigger point ball here, and we need to find a doorway or something where you can sort of step through the gap because we need some leverage on that pec to be able to release it properly. So I'm going to use the rack here, and I'm going to show you how to release your pecs with a trigger point ball. So you find a point on the edge of the wall or the doorway or wherever you are, and you're simply going to take a staggered stance and push yourself into that ball. So what we're looking to push into here is the fold between your pec and your front delt. That is the area we're targeting. So we find that spot, find out how we can leverage it through the door or the rack if we're at the gym, and we're simply going to raise our arm and turn our thumb downwards. So we're going to internally rotate that shoulder. By turning our thumb downwards, we get a little bit more pressure against the ball, and we're mashing into that pec like so. If we're really tender, we simply just go back to arm sweeps. But if we need to get right into that joint, we are going for the mash and the arm sweep combo. Now you can bring your thumb back up and raise that arm above your head a little bit, and that will give you another effect again. And we're simply sitting here rolling across that area between the front delt and the pec until we feel that release. The test you can do after this, if you want to, you can get on your back and do a rib grab and reach and see how much more you open up. But this is a great way to open those shoulders and release those pecs after a lot of pressing or a lot of sitting at a desk typing away on our computers. Traps and thoracic release. We can do that with a simple ball. Now, usually you would have seen it with a foam roller, laying on the ground, hands across, and you're rolling out across your thoracic, and then you're rolling up and down your back. Probably not the best way or the most optimal piece of kit to release it because we can't get onto that trigger point and that little targeted approach that we like to help release our thoracic and our trap, but we can do it all in one go on each side with a trigger point ball. So the way we set up for our trap release, we simply grab the ball in the opposite hand and we're placing that over our shoulder. Now we're aiming for the crest or the corner of our scapula here. So you'll feel it through there, and we're aiming for that position with the ball. So hand over the top into position here. Now, once we're here, we're simply going across that muscle, and you'll feel it. It might feel a little bit ropey if you haven't done it before. And we're rolling across your trap like so. Once you feel that release, you can start to slowly move down the thoracic, which we grab the ball and we simply use our other hand, our same hand of the side that we're on now, to place it into position. Now from here, we can open that shoulder blade or the scapula by bringing our arm across our body, giving ourselves a big hug. And we can move up and down that thoracic. Nice and easy. If you hit a sore spot, remember those cross frictions, slight movements up and down, really push into those little trigger points, up and down the entire thoracic until the pain starts to dissipate or the discomfort starts to drop away and you feel like you can push a little bit more weight in it. Things to note with your feet: you might be a little bit further away from the wall. That's creating leverage to push into the wall. Don't be afraid to step away from the wall a little bit if we're into position. Let's try the other side now, for instance. We can leverage by bringing our feet away if we need to create more leverage for more pressure. There you have it, guys. Trap and thoracic using your trigger point ball against your wall. Better than a foam roller, so grab one of these and see how you go. Okay, so we've gone through our trigger point series for unlocking our shoulders. Let's look at some mobility stretches that are going to really improve that range of motion to add the stability and integration components into our training. We're going to start on the floor as always. So we're going to work on a rib grab and reach. Now I'm going to show you the beginner version and then we'll show you how to ramp that up as we go throughout the program. So we're going to start with our foam roller here. We're going to lay on our side. I'm going to pin that knee to the foam roller. Now this is great if you don't have great thoracic range of motion and we need to create a bit more movement there. So we're going to put that leg on top and all we're simply going to do with this bottom arm is we're going to pin that knee on top of that roller. Now the idea is don't let that knee come off that roller. The next thing we're going to do is take a deep breath into the belly and we're going to rotate open nice and easy to the other side. Now we can continue. And we're going to go back and forth like so. Now the aim here, which you might see, is the idea is to get this shoulder to the floor. And that's the back of the shoulder to the floor. Once we get that shoulder to the floor, you take that foam roller away. And using that breath and release every reach, we're getting that shoulder to the floor. So once we've got that shoulder to the floor, we can take this into quadruped. And we're going to do a quad reach. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips. I'm going to bring that hand behind the back. We can also have it behind the head, wherever you feel safe. Breathing in, breath out, rotate open. Now the idea here is to use the eyes to function that movement. So we look as far as we can and we rotate open. Hand behind the head. The idea here is to do this as much as we need until we feel that range increasing through the breath and the open. I'm going to take that to sitting now. Now this one is one of my favorites because we can do this at our desk when we're working. So if you're a desk-bound worker, great little stretch for you to be able to utilize your office chair, and you're going to actually get a bit of internal hip mobility here, so you might feel a stretch through your adductors, and you're also going to get that thoracic mobility as well. So in that nice tall position, hand inside the thigh, we're going to breathe in, hand behind the back again, and we're going to open up. So the idea is to try and look at that wall behind you and use the prying of the hand inside the hip to increase that range. Once we're there, switch sides, working as much as we need until we feel that stretch increase. And opening up. So that's a handy little sitting drill. You can see from floor to quadruped to sitting. You can increase thoracic range of motion in your daily job or when you've got a spare couple of moments, but you can do it in any position you feel comfortable, working until you feel increasing range of motion throughout the movement. So we've mobilized and we've done our trigger point on our shoulders. Now it's time to add some stability components to our training. Now, when we talk about stability in our shoulders, it's a complex section of the body, meaning the scapula or your shoulder blades are a stability-based joint, and then our glenohumeral joint, i.e. our shoulder socket, is a mobility-based joint. So when we're talking about this approach, we're talking about overall health, but we isolate different components to highlight any issues or weaknesses we may have. So these stability-based exercises are going to challenge scapular stability, and our mobility section before was more about the mobility component of our shoulders. So our first position, or our first exercise, is the I's, T's, and Y's. Now you can do this with dumbbells, on a bench, you can do it with a TRX, but I'm going to show you the body weight version, and then you can choose which one you want to adapt into your training. Now we're going to lay on our stomach, and we're going to take a bit of tension or arching up through that thoracic. So we're going to come up off the floor by lifting our arms. Now we know we're cheating through this movement too much if we have our neck wound on. So our neck should be relaxed and should take no tension. Now we're going to lift those arms up and we're going to create an I. We're going to go out to a Y and then a T, and then we're going to relax. And then we're going to come up to a T, Y, and I, and then we can come down and relax. We can then come up again, I, Y, T, come back to the Y, and relax. Set, T, I, and we're moving through those letters. Now we can also add a W by pulling our elbows down and pinching those shoulder blades together. The trick is the reset and then the move through the letters. Now you should feel that in your upper back, and that will eventually be comfortable enough for you to be able to set without grabbing that neck tension, and that's all about scapular positioning in different stages of movement. The next we have is our Scap push-up. So now we've mastered on the floor, we're going to take it up a notch. First of all though, we're going to go through cat-camel, which brings into our Scap push-up. The reason why we don't jump straight through the Scap push-up is a lot of the time I see people doing our scapular work with their elbows bending, their neck trying to gain position, and it's easy if we start in a quadruped position here, we're nice and safe, we can focus on quality of movement before we add a level of difficulty being the push-up component. So simply pushing our shoulders to the roof and then sucking our shoulders to the ground. So pinching our shoulder blades together here and then pushing up as far away as we can through those shoulders, trying to touch the roof. And we're just simply going to go through cat-camel until we can maintain our elbows being locked, i.e. those elbows aren't flexing as we're trying to move through the position, they're just locked, and that movement is coming through the shoulder blades. Now, into those Scap push-ups, same tricks apply. Shoulders to the roof, pinching shoulders together in the bottom position. Now, as you can see, there's no tension in my neck. I'm not grabbing. You can't hear my voice change. It's nice and relaxed. And we're simply moving through full range like so. Now, a note on how you should feel. If you have deconditioned scaps or they struggle to get in a position, you might feel that burning there. That's normal, but eventually you should be able to do that with minimal thinking and minimal fuss. So that should become easy enough for you to do without thinking about it, meaning your scaps have that healthy range and you have that movement competency and awareness through that range and position there. Pushing, more importantly, pulling. Now, when we talk about our ratios between pushing versus pulling movements, when we're building our training program, we should aim for a ratio of 2 pulling to every 1 push movement. That helps keep our shoulders balanced and in alignment. Now, if we have shoulder issues or we really struggle getting into that finish position on any of our pulling, whether it's a pull-up, a bent over row, or anything like that, we should strip back to this little exercise called the bat wing row. Now, what it does is take out the arm component of the pull. So particularly you guys that are all strong through the arms, from training biceps, training big movements, what we're doing is isolating the actual scapular pull or the scapular movement of the row, which should help work that mid-back or the thoracic, lower thoracic. So you should feel that in the lower trapezius. It'll actually light up and help you engage those muscles to finish those strong pulling positions. Now, we're going to be face down on a bench, just straddling the bench. We need 2 dumbbells. Now, dumbbells are probably the only suitable thing here. And what you can see is I have a bent elbow. Now, this takes out the arms, so we can't extend past and then really pull into the movement. It's pretty important for here. So what we're going to do here, the cues I want you to think about is rowing to the hip. And when we row to the hip, we want a nice little pause. Even longer pause is even better, and we're lowering down. We tap the dumbbells on the floor. We return to that top position. Now we should be aiming for about 25 reps per set. Now I can already feel that. I've spent all day on a computer and my mid-back right about here is really feeling that and activating at the top of the pull. So aiming for about 25 reps on our bat wing rows, then moving into our pulling workout or exercises where we're pulling a lot of weight. It'll help keep that nice healthy shoulder position and keep us in balance.